Good evening! Welcome to tonight's edition of Quiztatorship, a trivia game that lets you deduce the answers by combining general knowledge with logical thinking. As we progress, the questions will be getting increasingly harder, so let's see how far you make it. Question 1. How many attempts did it take Coco Chanel, or rather her chemist, to create Chanel No. 5? The answer is 5. Question 2. A Reddit user wrote the following comment about a famous musician. Can his next album be called Subtract, so I can subtract his bland ginger ass out of my life? Who is the musician in question? The answer is obviously Ed Sheeran. Question 3. If it's brown, lie down. If it's black, fight back. If it's white, say goodnight. What do these instructions refer to? The answer is encounters with bears. Question 4. What happened to Isaac Newton in 1705, Arthur Sullivan in 1883, Roger Bannister in 1975, and Judi Dench in 1988? The answer is they were knighted. Question 5. 1662 saw the last known sighting of what? The answer is the dodo. Question 6. Who wrote the following lines? In March 1981, I lay in bed in a cheap hotel room in Rome with a high fever, no money and no ticket back to the United States. I had been fired from my first directing job, and I was pissed off at the world, isolated and alienated in a city where I could speak to no one. I dreamed about machines with glowing red eyes who walked among us like men. The answer is James Cameron. It was that dream that inspired him to write The Terminator. Question 7. In one of his segments, John Oliver from Last Week Tonight described Mark Zuckerberg as a real boy who once wished upon a star to blank. Finish the phrase. The answer is to be a wooden puppet. Question 8. What video game, invented in 1985, uses so-called tetrominos? The answer is Tetris. Question 9. In 1815, a gentleman named Levi Spear Parmley introduced the idea of using waxen silk thread. For what purpose? The answer is to floss your teeth. Question 10. What is dihydrogen monoxide? The answer is a fancy way of saying water. Question 11. When you're queuing in a supermarket, you can see all kinds of products around you, like chocolate bars, juices, chewing gums, etc. And you might sometimes grab an item in the last moment before you head to checkout. Now, according to researchers, in the past 15 years or so, the sales numbers of those products have gone down dramatically. The question is, why is that? I'm gonna give you a clue. This was not for financial reasons. The answer is, this is because people nowadays stare at their phones while queuing rather than looking around. Question 12. Ernest Hemingway once left the following dedication in a copy of one of his novels. To Victor Hill, a real son of a bitch, who can't take no for an answer. Ernest Hemingway. What exactly was Mr. Hill asking him to do? The answer is, Mr. Hill was begging Hemingway for an autograph. Question 13. Many assume that this wealthy industrialist felt guilty because a strike at his factory had led to a number of deaths among his workers. However, he had been planning to give away most of his fortune long before the strike happened. Today, he is also famous for having built a popular concert venue. What is the venue in question? The answer is Carnegie Hall. Question 14. In 1929, Herbert Hoover became the first US president to have what in his office? The answer is a telephone. Question 15. In Togo, when they introduced warning text on cigarette packs, members of parliament insisted that it wasn't enough and that they needed to include scary images. Why was that? The answer is, that was because about a third of the country's population are illiterate. Question 16. In the mid-1990s, Swedish furniture designer Jan Dranger came to IKEA with a revolutionary suggestion. The idea was for a sofa, and the company got absolutely excited about it. The sofa was released far too quickly, without taking the time to properly test the product first. The question is, what was inside the sofa? The answer is air. It was inflatable. Question 17. What animal did the Europeans call a camelopard when they first discovered it? The answer is the giraffe. Question 18. You've probably seen Rembrandt's famous painting The Night Watch at some point. When the painting was placed in a town hall back in the 1750s, they cut off the lower part of it, including the subject's feet, because it just wouldn't fit otherwise. Now, recently the picture was restored. But how, if the part that was cut off had been disposed of a long time ago? The answer is, a clever AI program figured out what the missing part would have looked like. Question 19. During the colder months, when I've been lying around on a couch or when I've just put on a dressing gown, I always grab a little bell and touch my laptop with it before I sit down to work. The question is, why do I do that? The answer is to avoid a static discharge. Have a look at this Chinese word. Can you figure out what it means? I'm gonna give you a clue. The meanings of the individual characters are not going to help you. The answer is, if you put the characters together, they read amphetamine. So the answer is amphetamine. Question 1. What video game character was named after the fact that he can run at the speed of sound? The answer is Sonic the Hedgehog. Question 2. On what occasion do you get 11 million Swedish kronor? The answer is when you're awarded the Nobel Prize. Question 3. What was depicted on an anti-racism poster because they're black, white and Asian? The answer is a panda. Question 4. What did Stephen King describe as the biggest keyhole in the history of mankind? The answer is the internet. Question 5. There is this Chinese fairy tale, 10 Pots of Wine. It is about 10 wise men who decided to get together and drink some wine. Wine would be put in a kettle and heated up. But one of them thought to himself, if everyone brings wine, the wine will be too strong. And so he brought water instead. The question is, how does the fairy tale end? The answer is, yep, you guessed it. All 10 men had the same idea. Question 6. When the monks of the Dominican order were banned from playing cards, they came up with a new game. What game was it? The answer is domino. Question 7. In 2006, what decision by the International Astronomical Union caused widespread outrage? The answer is to revoke Pluto's status as a planet. Question 8. There were 2 reasons Caesar wore a laurel wreath on his head. The first one was obviously to emphasize his status. What was the other one? The answer is to hide his receding hairline. Question 9. What horror movie had the working title A Long Night at Camp Blood? The answer is Friday the 13th. Question 10. On Californian beaches, when a surfer says they saw a man in a grey suit, what do they mean by that? The answer is, that means they saw a shark. Question 11. At a wedding in the city of Suzhou in China in 2021, the groom's mother saw a birthmark on the bride's hand that was the same as the one on her daughter's hand. Now, her daughter had disappeared more than 20 years prior. After asking the bride's parents if the woman had been adopted, the mother was told that yes, the bride had indeed been adopted as a baby. Therefore, the bride was actually the groom's sister. However, the wedding was not stopped. Why not? The answer is because the man had been adopted as well, so the two were not related by blood. Question 12. Under Napoleon Bonaparte, in the early 19th century, a man called Eugène François Vidocq established the country's first police force. The police force consisted of men belonging to one particular occupation. Which one? The answer is they were all criminals. Question 13. There was a pig in South Africa that would paint in the style of abstract expressionism. Can you guess what name the animal was known under? I'll give you a clue. It's a pun. The answer is Picasso. Question 14. According to the Hollywood Reporter, who is the most powerful CEO in Hollywood? The answer is Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. Question 15. In the 1910s, what English composer became a skilled interpreter of horoscopes? The answer is Gustav Holst, who was inspired to write his famous planets after coming across a book on astrology. Question 16. Canaries were imported to Europe from the Canary Islands in the 15th century. However, the people shipping them would first carefully examine the product to make sure that only birds of a certain kind would be shipped. What was the criterion that the birds were sorted by? The answer is all canaries had to be male to prevent them from reproducing. Question 17. Complete the following quote by Mr. Ping from Kung Fu Panda. There is no secret ingredient. To make something special, you just have to blank. The answer is, you just have to believe it's special. Question 18. Sometimes the Danish like to make fun of their neighbors, the Swedes. They will say things like, here in Denmark, everything is better than in Sweden. The climate, the nature, the cuisine, even our character. There is only one thing that is better in Sweden. What is that thing according to the Danish? The answer is the neighbors, as in the neighboring country. Question 19. Puccini's last opera, Turandot, premiered on the 25th of April 1926 in Milan. Suddenly, in the middle of the third act, the conductor and orchestra stopped and the curtain came down. Why? The answer is, because that's how far Puccini had got before he died. The conductor turned to the audience and declared, Here the opera ends, because at this point the maestro laid down his pen. The work was later completed by Franco Alfano. Question 20. Most of you would have heard of Bodhidharma, the famous Indian monk. One day he decided to choose a successor from among his disciples, and he asked them one question: what is the essence of wisdom? How did the disciple who eventually became his successor answer that question? The answer is, the disciple said, "I don't know." Question 1. In 1974, where could you hear the phrase, "the shark is not working"? The answer is on set of Jaws. Question 2. The ancient Greek word euris means wide, and the word ops means face or eye, so if you put them together, you arrive at wide gazing. The name of what region is derived from this? The answer is Europe. Question 3. Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, loved birds. He had several books by a then famous ornithologist on his shelf. What was that ornithologist's name? The answer is James Bond. Yep, 007 was named after a birdwatcher. Question 4. In former times, why would surgeons keep a wooden hammer in their office? The answer is, well, anesthesia wasn't really a thing, so that was the best way to knock you out before a surgery. Question 5. Can you guess what actress was featured on the cover of the very first Playboy back in 1953? The answer is Marilyn Monroe. Question 6. Animal psychologist Glenn Jansen used to experiment with rats, offering them instantly accessible food in a cup. At the same time, however, food was also available in a dispenser nearby, which required the rats to press a pedal several times before they could get their treats. It turned out that the rats preferred the second option, where they had to put in some effort. In similar experiments, mice, dogs, monkeys, birds, and even fish demonstrated the same behavior. There was only one animal that preferred getting its food without doing any work at all. Can you guess the animal in question? The answer is, you guessed it, cats. Question 7. One American gentleman needed money, so he had an idea. He placed an ad in a newspaper stating he was getting married and asking people to send him advice on how to have a successful marriage. He received about 1,000 replies. The question is, how did he make money from that? The answer is, he published the tips he received in a book. Question 8. When they were building the Great Wall of China, they mixed a certain food into the mortar to make it stronger. What was the food in question? The answer is rice. Question 9. What 1984 science fiction movie was so complex they had to distribute explanation sheets to the moviegoers? The answer is Dune. Question 10. Fill in the blank. In 1982, Billy Joel's 52nd Street was one of the first 50 albums to be released blank. The answer is to be released on CD. Question 11. What were the Shang, the Zhou, the Sui, the Tang, and the Yuan? The answer is Chinese dynasties. Question 12. What camera manufacturer describes their mission in the following manner? We exist to help you see those moments, to pause them, and to relive them in something you can hold in your hand and turn to forever. The answer is Polaroid. Question 13. What is topographical cretinism? The answer is topographical cretinism is also referred to as topographical disorientation. It means you are unable to orient yourself in your surroundings. Question 14. What suite is named after Forrest E. Marsh Sr. and Bruce Murray? The answer is M&M's. Question 15. Complete the following quote by George Bernard Shaw. Now that we have learned to fly in the air like birds and dive in the sea like fish, only one thing remains: to learn blank. The answer is to learn to live on Earth as human beings. Question 16. What did the ancient Greeks call a period of 4 years? Your answer doesn't need to be precise, but you must get the rough idea. The answer is Olympiad. Question 17. Agatha Christie wrote the last Poirot novel, Curtain, Poirot's Last Case, back in the early 1940s. However, it wasn't published until 1975, over 30 years later. The question is why? The answer is, fearing she might not survive the war, Christie wanted to give her fans a closure. The manuscript was to be published in the event of her death. Luckily, that proved unnecessary. Question 18. Peter the Great was a Tsar of Russia in the 17th and 18th century. There is a statue of him in London overlooking the River Thames, erected in the year 2000. The statue has a weirdly small head. Why is that? The answer is, this is because, and I fear you might hate me for that, he really did have a pretty small head. Question 19. What is the slang word for a woman who takes excessive amounts of photographs of her children? The answer is mamarazzi. Question 20. A question about a man called Olaudah Equiano. Equiano was born in 1745 in Guinea and was a former slave who spent his adult life in England. For years he worked on a ship and finally managed to buy his freedom. As a former slave, what did Equiano have that most other former slaves did not? The answer is slaves. Question 1. What is plated in 24-karat gold and stands on a roll of film? The answer is the Oscar. Question 2. What famously fell on whose head in Lincolnshire in 1666? The answer is an apple on Isaac Newton's head. Question 3. When it comes to traffic and warning signs, they are normally black and white. However, there is a sign in Norway that goes the opposite route. It is white on black, and it warns against the risk of an animal attack. What is the animal in question? The answer is the polar bear. Question 4. In script writing, what does EXT stand for? The answer is it stands for exterior, meaning that the scene in question is set outdoors. Question 5. The parents of what late singer run a charity that helps people struggling with substance abuse? The answer is Amy Winehouse. Question 6. Complete the following quote by Mark Twain. There is no sadder sight than a young pessimist, except blank. The answer is except an old optimist. Question 7. When Marlon Brando was a young aspiring actor, he attended an acting course. One day, the class was instructed to act like chickens when a nuclear bomb is about to go off. Everyone was running about, acting all scared, but Brando just sat there and did nothing, looking around. The question is why? The answer is because what do chickens know about bombs? Question 8. On trains or other machinery, what is a dead man's switch? The answer is a dead man's switch is a safety device that requires the operator to activate it regularly. If they don't, the machine will assume the operator is incapacitated and stop. Question 9. According to numerous historians, what band, originally from Birmingham, England, invented heavy metal in the late 1960s? The answer is Black Sabbath. Question 10. In the first years of basketball, after scoring a point, why did it always take the players a few moments before they could resume the game? The answer is because they would use actual baskets, meaning they first had to extract the ball. Question 11. In ancient Rome, what was your rank if you had 80 to 100 soldiers under your command? The answer is centurion, hence the name. Question 12. According to a popular theory, cult plus time equals what? The answer is religion. Question 13. In 1984, Universal Studios took Sony to court because of a device the latter had produced. However, the court decided that the product fell into the fair use category and could be sold legally. What exactly was the product in question? The answer is a VCR with a recording function. Question 14. During the French Revolution, King Louis XVI tried to escape the country, but everyone knew what he looked like. How? The answer is his face was on the coins. Question 15. 69 of them were created in St. Petersburg between 1885 and 1917. 57 have survived to this day. What are these precious little things? The answer is Fabergé eggs. Question 16. What is the name of the subgenre of science fiction whose aesthetics can be described as what people in the past thought the future would look like? The answer is steampunk. Question 17. What happens if the crystalline structure of the atoms within a piece of metal is aligned so that all of the atoms are facing the same direction? The answer is the metal becomes magnetic. Question 18. According to Arthur Schopenhauer, every truth experiences three stages. The first one is, it is ridiculed. The third one is, it is accepted as self-evident. But what is the second stage? The answer is, it is violently opposed. Question 19. There is this saying, communist dream ends where blank. Complete the phrase. The answer is where a communist reality starts. Question 20. Oh look, another question about polar bears. As Arctic ice melts, you can see more and more polar bears climbing up mountains in search of food. What kind of food are they looking for specifically? The answer is birds' eggs. Right, question 1. Back in the late 1960s, an English novelist got drunk and lay down in a field to have a rest. It was nighttime, and he was staring at the stars, and his creative juices started flowing. He started wondering what would happen if there was a book to help those traveling from planet to planet. Who was that writer, and what novel came out of that? The answer is, the man's name was Douglas Adams, and a book he conceived at night was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Question 2. What platform allows creators to receive 80% of the subscription fees paid by the users, earning on average $1,300 a year? I'm gonna give you a clue. 70% of the content creators on that website are women. The answer is OnlyFans. Honestly, what did you think? Question 3. What has 13 stripes on it? The answer is the US flag. Question 4. Once, when making a movie in the Philippines, Michael Caine was at a party. At some point he noticed that the hostess didn't seem to like him very much, and when he asked why, she said she thought he was a drug dealer. Why would she possibly assume that? The answer is because she overheard people referring to him as my cocaine. Question 5. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry once said, "The strength of a civilization is not measured by its ability to fight wars, but rather by its ability to blank." Complete the phrase. The answer is, but rather by its ability to prevent them. Question 6. Sponges made of moss, grass or bamboo, soaked in oil, vinegar, lemon juice or cedar oil, lace seeds, lead and other toxic metals, pomegranate seeds, silphium, unripe papaya, as well as fish intestines. Throughout history, what have women used these things for? The answer is contraception. Question 7. Where can you find the following sequence? Yeah, I'm not going to read this out loud. The answer is after the decimal point in pi. Question 8. There is a book called Everything Men Know About Women. What is special about it? The answer is the book is empty. It is essentially a notebook. Question 9. The Great Whiskey Fire of Dublin happened in 1875 when 5,000 barrels of whiskey flowed into the streets. 13 people lost their lives. But what exactly did they die of? The answer is alcohol poisoning, because free booze. Question 10. 343 meters per second is the speed of what? The answer is the speed of sound. Question 11. In Europe, what is normally 1435 mm wide? The size is known as the Stevenson gauge and is the most commonly used size in the world. The answer is, it is the width of railway tracks. Question 12. Fill in the blank. Sloths, blank, 3 times faster than they walk. I'm gonna give you a clue. The answer might not be what you think it is. The answer is swim. Question 13. Istanbul, Moscow, London, St. Petersburg, Berlin. What did I just name? The answer is Europe's largest cities by population within city limits. Question 14. There was this couple that met and fell in love at a Star Trek convention. However, one of them was from France and the other one from England. The woman barely spoke any English, the man spoke exactly zero French. What language did they communicate in until they learned each other's languages? The answer is Klingon. Question 15. After having to wear masks during the pandemic, some Japanese people had to attend a course in order to relearn a certain ability. What was the ability in question? The answer is smiling. Question 16. The famous industrialist and anti-Semite Henry Ford appreciated art. And so one day, two art dealers came up with an idea. They reckoned they would create a catalog of all the artworks in their possession and give him a copy, hoping he would purchase something. The elaborately designed catalog even featured a reproduction of every painting, and Ford was duly impressed. However, he didn't purchase a single painting. The question is, why not? Just to be clear, it had nothing to do with him not being fond of Jewish people, and in any case, I don't think the two men were Jewish. The answer is, he didn't buy anything because he had just received a copy of each painting in the catalog. He didn't feel he needed the originals. Question 17. There is a station called Seiryo Miharashi Eki in the middle of nowhere in Japan. It can only be accessed by train, and there are no entrances or exits. What is the point of the station? The answer is, it offers a clear view of the picturesque surroundings, which is reflected in its name. That is all. Question 18. Fill in the blank. As of the 22nd of November 2022, there are 76 blank in the United Kingdom, 55 in England, 7 in Wales, 8 in Scotland, and 6 in Northern Ireland. The answer is cities. In the UK, the status of a city is granted by the monarch and might not necessarily meet the generally accepted definition. Question 19. The most famous one in London is 165 years old, and the most famous one in Paris is 135 years old. What are these two? The answer is the city's most famous towers. The Clock Tower, aka Elizabeth Tower, aka St. Stephen's Tower, aka Big Ben in London, and the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Question 20. Paul McCartney thought he might have accidentally stolen it, so he kept asking his friends if it was theirs. It wasn't. What is that it? The answer is the tune of Yesterday. Thanks for watching. You don't have to like or subscribe or anything like that. But then, it's just one click, right? I would appreciate it. Check out the channel for more videos like this one, and have a peaceful night.